And so begins Claudio Ranieri's third stint as Roma manager. He takes over with them 12th in the Serie A standings with only one win in their last 5 games. Ranieri signed a contract until the end of this season. He'll also help the club's owners in their search for a permanent manager. His first game set for 10 days' time, and it's a tough one at league leaders Napoli. Here's our very own Marco Messina's reaction to the appointment.
The big question was who's going to come in. There were so many names on the list, from Roberto Mancini, Max Allegri, Terzic, Lampard, Rudy Garcia, but it's Claudio Ranieri who returns to the club for a 3rd time. Yes, he's been at this team 3 times, and hopefully 3rd time is the charm. It's also the 3rd coach that Roma are going through in this campaign, and I think that they finally made the right choice. I've already said, I don't think De Rossi should have been sacked. But with that all being said, there's no better option than Claudio Ranieri. And I'll tell you why. Ranieri has dealt with difficult situations before. What he did with Cagliari to not only get them to Serie A, but also to save them from relegation. He even said that was more important than winning the league with Leicester City, and everyone talks about that as one of the greatest achievements. That's how difficult of a situation it was when he went into Cagliari with the team, yet he got a reaction. He kept them in Serie A. This Roma side needs a lot of that. He also has a special bond with the Roman fan base. Anytime he's returned as an opponent, or when he returned in 2019 as a coach in a difficult situation, the Roma fans absolutely love him, and Ranieri loves Roma. He's been moved to tears with the affection that he gets, and I think that that's exactly what this fan base wants and what this needs. And the last reason why I think that he's really important for this side right now is because Roma have to reevaluate come June what they are doing with their project. All of those other options as coaches would have wanted long-term contracts. They wanted 2-3 years at $3 million salary. Ranieri is taking a $1.5 million. He's going to stay until June. Then he'll become an advisor to the ownership, where they could get a proper CEO, get a proper sporting director, and build a project, which is what Roma needs. So I think Ranieri is the perfect option to get through this difficult period and get you to the end of the season. He's also very good at putting teams together and getting groups together. And I think there's so many pieces within this Roma side that need that expertise, that knowledge, that Serie A experience of having a coach who knows how to speak to a group. Mats Hummels is one perfect example who was not seen from this team, and he was playing in the Champions League final just in June. Paulo Dybala is not at his best. Matthias Sule was one of the brightest young talents last season with Frosinone, and he's been awful so far this season. Dovbyk, top goal scorer in La Liga. All of these pieces need to come together, and I think Ranieri, who's coming out of retirement for this job, is the perfect option, and all of us Serie A fans can hope that he keeps Roma doing well in the Serie A, and hopefully they can achieve their goals and get back on track.
Really interesting appointment. Marco, pretty unequivocal there. He thinks it's the right choice. Do you agree with him?
I don't, and I don't mean to have a go at Marco Messina, and I think he makes a good point for why at this precise moment in time, with the situation that is going on around Roma, why you would make an argument that maybe you just need a Band-Aid to get through to the end of the season. But wasn't Ivan Juric meant to be a Band-Aid to get you through to the end of the season? What if this Band-Aid doesn't work? In 2 months' time, we're looking at another run of Roma results where they look like they might be struggling in the Europa League, or they continue to be mid-table in Serie A, and then they're looking for another Band-Aid solution. I understand what Marco is talking about, that they need to build up the infrastructure at the club, but I'm left wondering, why didn't that infrastructure already exist? Why was there someone who was really there to do Jose Mourinho's deals in charge before, and you have not adequately replaced him in charge of the club? And yeah, you see some enthusiasm, and the Roma fans are incredibly passionate about their team, and they're having a former player and a former manager come back, but what are they doing? What is the overall point of the project at Roma? And I don't think this managerial appointment comes any closer to answering that question.
But also, is placating the fans with someone they like actually the answer for the team? And for me, I don't think so.
Well, I mean, I think that's kind of what De Rossi was meant to be when he was brought in January. Remember when Jose Mourinho was let go, there were similar scenes, but of anger, of the fans going outside of the stadium going, this guy got us to the Conference League final. We won a major European trophy. We got to another Europa League final. Yeah, they were going through a bad moment in Serie A, but why are you letting go of Mourinho? He's the one figure that was a galvanizing figure at the club, and they brought in De Rossi, who did placate the fans. Because remember, Daniele De Rossi is an all-time hero at Roma, and they bring him in to be the manager, and he takes over, and they go on a terrific run of results. They get the new manager bounce, but can you go year after year of placating your fans with someone that they like? Is that a sustainable way to run a club? I just don't think so.
73 years old. He had already retired. There's been a lot of misses in Claudio.
Yeah, his swan song at Cagliari already. He was at Cagliari last season and got them to stay up, and it was, all right, thanks, everyone, I'm out of here. And it's at Cagliari. This is a completely different level. We're talking about Roma that had expectations to play Champions League football next season that I think they bought the top goal scorer from La Liga last season in Artem Dovbyk, and he has not hit the ground running. As Marco Messina mentioned, they bought one of the promising young talents in Italy last season in Mattias Sule. He has not hit the ground running. Najario Coker, our colleague, talks all the time about Manu Kone being one of the best midfield talents up and coming in the world. They brought in Enzo Lefebvre. They brought in all these players during the summer. How can you go out and spend all that money and 3 months later not have any idea what your project is? It beggars belief. And I'm not specifically having a go at Ranieri. He might be the right person to be that transitional manager. But for me, they've been on 3 transitional managers now. Giallorossi was meant to be a transitional manager until he wasn't. And then 4 games into his next season, he's no longer the transitional manager. Ivan Juric is meant to be the transitional manager because their results were struggling. He could grind out results at Torino, weren't good enough for Roma. And now they're on a 3rd transitional manager away from Jose Mourinho. Who are Roma is the question that they have to answer.
That's the thing with Ranieri as well, is although there have been some significant hits in his managerial career, most notably what he did at Leicester, there have been a lot of misses as well. Clubs that he's gone to not managed to galvanise the team, a lot of question marks over his tactics. Is this what some of those players that Marco mentioned there, Dovbyk most significantly, is he going to be able to inspire them, a 73-year-old manager who has got some tactical frailties? Is he going to be able to galvanise this team and get them back where they belong? I don't know.
Well, and you look at that fixture list, we just had it up on the screen. Napoli, Tottenham, Atalanta out of the break.
I was going to ask you, what's he going to have to get right in those games to kind of prove his point or prove the hierarchy's
get
point?
Some kind,
get something from those games.
You could maybe, if that game was home, Napoli, maybe you're saying the Stadio Olimpico is behind the team. They're ready to be galvanized behind this manager who they love, and they'll bring in a great atmosphere. But you're away at the Maradona, and you're away at the Tottenham Hotspur in your first 2 games. Look, he has all the experience in the world. Ranieri has been in every single situation imaginable. He has been down the bottom of the league. Remember when Leicester won the league, he kept saying 40 points, 40 points. He just kept saying that over and over again. He knows how to manage at the bottom. He's managed at the middle. He's managed at the top. He's experienced enough to handle the situation. But again, I don't know what they're looking for. Is it just a new manager balances at someone that the fans like? Because I remember the reports were coming out when it looked like Ivan Juric was heading through the trap door, and they kept saying, we're getting a big manager in. We're going to go get one of these big guys that's out there.
Well, Mancini was who we thought.
Yeah, right. Roberto Mancini. Edin Terzic was out there as maybe someone after managing in the Champions League final. Maybe he would come back to manage at Roma. Every big name, that Maxi Allegri, whoever is out there that is presumably a big candidate at the moment, they were thinking about going for, and instead they've gone for another interim, get you through to the end of the season. Maybe you finish 8th, maybe you finish 7th, but I really had expectations for Roma, and the players that they bought in the summer are good enough to compete for Champions League quality trophies, and they got themselves into a similar situation when Mourinho first joined by spending €100 million on players and having a very high wage budget and bringing in Dybala and Lukaku and these guys that were probably destined for bigger clubs in Roma or clubs that had performed better more recently. And yet they did not, in Serie A, they did in Europe and in cup competitions get the job done, but in Serie A, they just didn't. They never got to the Champions League while Mourinho was the manager, and you would have thought that Giallorossi, with this big spend and getting these really talented players in, would be competing at the very least for Champions League football. And you look at right now, Atalanta, Fiorentina, getting the job done at that level, and they spend way less than Roma do on their squad.
Gut reaction, does this turn into a fireball and a complete mess, or do you think he might be able to turn things around?
I think if he ends up on 1.8, 1.9 points per game, a win here, a draw there, gets them up the table, they score some goals. I think the biggest thing for them is Roma, for all that they signed in the attacking part of the pitch, have not scored enough goals this season. So that is the biggest thing for Ranieri to come in and do. But yeah, I think he can get something. But again, you look at these first 2 games, they're in 12th right now in Serie A. Away at Napoli, home with Atalanta. If they get nothing from those games, they could be in 14th, 15th by the time he's really settled in the job. So he's got a difficult job on his hands.